Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Desiree with my Module 2 video blog. This week, I looked at Gagne's 9 events on how to apply e-learning, and it was very interesting because Gagne, wrote this book, Conditions of Learning, in 1965. So you can see how many years later his information is still pretty relevant to today's learning. I always like to say education is kind of like one big circle. We start one place and then we come right back around. So, his 9 theories were, the first one was to create an intention grabbing introduction. So, kind of setting up your anticipatory set, make the lesson meaningful, learningful, and engaging for students to want to participate. I think that this applies to just about any grade level. I mean, from kindergarten on to the collegiate level. You always want to make sure that your students are engaged in the learning process and that they are willing and able and eager to want to participate in the discussion or the topic of learning. The second step was to inform learners about their objectives. Again, this should fall into just about any grade level. You always want to notify your learners of exactly what it is they're going to learn and what they're expected to have in the learning outcomes. The third step was to stimulate recall of prior information or knowledge. Again, this all relates just back to whether it be an e-learning class, an online class, or just a class in a brick and mortar, is that we always want to recall prior knowledge to see what our students know about the topic at hand. The fourth step was to create a goal centered around the content. The fifth step was to provide online guidance. Sixth step was to practice makes perfect. Seventh step is to offer timely feedback. The eighth step is to assess often and early. And then the very last step is to enhance transfer of knowledge into real-world applications. And again, going through all 9 steps, this truly applies to all grade levels, all course subjects, just about anything. I mean, those are kind of the key steps that any administrator would look for if they were coming in to do an observation in your classroom, and the same things that you want to do into the classroom. You always are on the online classroom. You always want to engage your learners. If students aren't engaged, they're just not participating. They're not fully understanding and implementing the lesson. So it really doesn't matter what audience is attendant for this. This can be any audience. It can be any grade level. It can be any course, any subject area. It's just mainly talking about how you're engaging the students in the learning and kind of giving them a little bit of the responsibility by setting the objectives and practicing with them. Then that way the final step is applying this information to real world application. So that is where the students must be responsible and kind of take the learning and show how and what they learned and how they can apply it. I wouldn't, as an elementary teacher, I don't think that I would apply an online or an e-learning class for my students quite yet. I think my students and elementary students are not quite ready for a lot of the independent work where you kind of just explain things to them and then they're able to take that explanation and that guidance and that practice and fully commit to a lesson. So I definitely would start applying this to late middle school, maybe 9th grade, up to early high school. Because once they become college students, a lot of the material that they will be doing is independent, a little bit of classwork, and most students now are taking a lot more online courses. So I think that although it could be applied to all grade levels, I think my students personally would find some difficulties with kind of using their time wisely to complete the assigned assignments. We do a lot of flipped lessons, and we kind of shorten those and condense those. And still, we do still have some students who kind of struggle with this new concept of the flipped lesson. That's all I have for you about Gagné's 9 events to the e-learning process. It was wonderful talking with you. Please, if you have any questions about any of my research, feel free to ask me. I did, again, go through the course materials that were provided to us, and I also looked up on, and I found an article on the website of the Illinois School of Department of Education that I will attach to the bottom of my blog. So I hope you all have a blessed day, and if you're up north like me in the 90-degree heat, try to stay warm. Peace and blessings.